And just to get us started, my name is Amanda Golden. I'm the managing principal of Designing Local, and I will be the moderator this evening. We are thrilled to have you all and think that you will really enjoy the discussion. We have an amazing panel of experts for you and cannot wait to hear the conversation and the dialogue with all of our attendees as well as our panelists. I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to Christopher Hubbard to introduce, why we're all here, what the Cultural Arts Strategic Plan is, and share a little bit about the Cultural Arts program at the City of Clearwater. And then we'll get started with the discussion.
All right, thank you very much, Amanda. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. On behalf of the city, I'd like to thank you for taking part in tonight's panel discussion. We're at a very exciting moment in Clearwater's cultural history. The Clearwater Cultural Arts Strategic Planning process aims to capture Clearwater's cultural history and recognize the milestones that have brought us to where we are today. The Cultural Affairs program encompasses the Public Art Design program, the Sister Cities Cultural Exchange program, as well as general cultural arts programming throughout the city. Now, the strategic planning process started in 2020 when we partnered with Amanda and Designing Local to set the course of what Clearwater's arts and cultural future will be. And the planning process aims to capture Clearwater's history and recognize, I just said that. As we chart the future for the next 5, 10, and years to come, it's with an eye towards ensuring that our programming grows and evolves alongside our community, meeting the needs and interests of our residents and visitors alike, and making good use of the lessons we have learned along the way. Now, we anticipate this process will last a few months longer with a presentation to the City Council in August of this year, with programs beginning after that. So I'd like to extend my sincere thanks to tonight's panel for sharing their views and expertise with us this evening. And I'd also like to thank Amanda Golden and the team at Designing Local for shepherding us through the strategic planning process and setting us up with a toolkit for success. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Amanda to get us started.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Christopher. What I'd like to do now is for each of the panelists to introduce themselves and give a 5 or so minute background on themselves, their work, as well as what they see the future of arts and culture being as they come out of what has been a very long year. And I'm just going to start with Barbara, and I'll call on each of you as we go through. So Barbara St. Clair will go first.
Great, thank you. So I am the CEO of Creative Pinellas, and we are the local arts agency for the entire county, which means that Clearwater is in our service area, as is St. Pete, as is Tarpon, Safety Harbor, the beaches, and our focus really is countywide. Our mission is to foster and sustain, and I have to read it, I never can remember it, to foster and sustain a vibrant, inclusive, and collaborative arts community across Pinellas County. We provide support, connection, and opportunities to artists, organizations, and the public in order to grow and sustain the area as an internationally recognized arts and cultural destination. So everyone pretty much knows that tourism is hugely important to Pinellas County. And historically, the beaches have driven that engine. In recent years, there's been a recognition that arts and culture not only drives the economic engine in general, but drives tourism in specific and really distinguishes Pinellas County, our geography, from other places that have wonderful beaches, but don't necessarily have a vibrant arts and cultural community. So that's sort of the framework that we play in. And then we do a lot of things in the community. So I'm going to give you some examples. We do grants and support. So we have grants for professional artists. We have grants for emerging artists. That's one of my favorites because not only does it come with a financial commitment to the artist, but we also connect each artist with a professional artist mentor. And we have an emerging artist show in the spring. And so that's very exciting because we really, on that grant, we really get to watch what happens when an artist is supported by their community. We do a lot of work in creating content and education In the last year, like many, we have migrated to a video platform for a lot of our activities, and especially our presentation activities. And that turned out to be kind of exciting because we expanded our audience far beyond our reach in the past. And if you remember our focus on tourism and cultural destination, it also allowed us to expand our reach beyond the region and educate people outside of Pinellas County about the wonderful arts and cultural community we have. We have our exhibition space that is in the Pinewood Cultural Park next to the Botanical Gardens in Heritage Village. And that was the location of the former Gulf Coast Museum of Art. It's an incredibly beautiful 10,000 square foot art space that was basically mothballed for about 10 years. We negotiated with the county to let us start programming it, and that's really taken off. We have a wonderful program right now called Expanding Waters, which will go through mid-June. It's our artist laureate, Carol Mickett and Robert Stackhouse, and it's about climate change and sea level rise. It's really quite wonderful if you get a chance to go see it before it closes. And then we also have our arts journal, the Arts Coast Journal, which is designed to provide content that people are really interested in reading about the arts and about culture in Pinellas County. There's quite some other things that we do. creativepinellas.org is the location to find out a lot more about us. And thank you, Amanda and Christopher, for inviting me to participate in this conversation. I'm really looking forward to what I have to learn.
Thank you so much, Barbara. And Roberta Klar, I'd love to hear from you next.
Okay, thank you, Amanda, and thank you, Christopher, for having me. So I'm Roberta Klar. I'm a local architect, but I'm the president of the Clearwater Arts Alliance. And we're happy to be a part of the cultural plan, the new development of the cultural plan, because back in the early formation of the Clearwater Arts Alliance, I think it was back in 2000, that it was really the Clearwater Arts Alliance, with the help of Margot Walble and the Cultural Affairs Division of Clearwater, that the first cultural plan was actually implemented. So the Clearwater Arts Alliance has a long history in promoting and has a vested interest in the cultural plan and really how it moves forward. Out of that cultural plan, with again the help of the Clearwater Arts Alliance, came the Public Art and Design Ordinance. And that ordinance essentially required civic projects as well as private projects to contribute 1% of their capital to public art. So over the years, the Clearwater Arts Alliance has done many things for the community and for Clearwater. We have a very strong arts and education component, which is wonderful. We have an art exhibition for elementary school children, as well as an art exhibition for high school children that we just, or high school kids that we just finished. We also have an advocacy component of the Clearwater Arts Alliance, where we're keeping up to date and doing as much letter writing for promoting arts in our area. Additionally, we have our own public art projects. Over the years, we had one fun project called Pianos in Pinellas, where we painted, it was kind of a combined art and music component, where we had artists paint pianos, and then we had musicians play their favorite tunes on the pianos in a public setting. So that was fun. But currently our big project is Thinking Outside the Box, which is wrapping the signal boxes that are at various intersections. We started out with just one, and now we're up to over 30 signal boxes that we've wrapped. We pay artists for their art, and then we can use their images up to, I think it's six times or 3 times. I think it's 3 times that we can use their images. But what has been, we talk about promoting our neighborhoods, and what has been probably the neatest thing about the signal box program is that we have gone into the neighborhoods and done neighborhood specific signal boxes. And so that's been really good. The neighborhoods are completely engaged in that. They're choosing the artists, they're working with the artists, and it's been a great program. And Beth Daniels from the Clearwater Arts Alliance has been really heading up that portion of the Signal Box program. So, just moving forward with your question on how do we see the arts coming out of the pandemic? I think it's just a prime time. We're all itching to get out and share ideas, and oftentimes art is our voice. And so I think everybody's anxious to get out and listen to music and see beautiful things and talk about art and express our feelings. And I think it's a perfect prime time as well, because the Imagine Clearwater is kicking off in Clearwater. And I think to bring visibility to the arts, I think it needs to come from the top down. We can be boots on the ground, and it's worked out so far, but I think we can gain more traction if we have buy-in from our local officials. So, the Clearwater Arts Alliance mission is to bring visibility to the arts, and we've been very diligent for 20 years in trying to keep promoting, and we're having fun doing it as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Roberta. Next, we'll hear from Sharon Reid-Kane.
Great. I would just echo my thanks to Amanda and Christopher for the invitation. It's just a pleasure to be part of this conversation. So I'm Sharon Reid-Kane. I'm the Chief Officer of Education and Community Engagement at Ruth Eckerd Hall, the local performing arts center. I've been with the hall for a little over 15 years. My scope of responsibility is to oversee all of the arts programming that we have on site on the Ruth Eckerd Hall campus, really kind of the traditional things you would envision: private lessons, classes. Our summer camps are coming back this summer, we're thrilled. But we also have a really thriving community engagement program. We go into the schools and retirement communities, neighborhood recreation centers. We work very closely with the Juvenile Welfare Board. Any place we can go to take the same arts experiences that someone would get access to on site, we take out into the community. And that's a really important sort of philosophical switch we've made in the past several years. We wanted to take this magic, for lack of a better word, that we do every day on site out into the community, in particular to support the schools and the challenges they're facing more than ever. So when you ask the second part of the question, what will things look like? That's just the $1 million question, isn't it? That's hard to answer. I know that the art coming out of this situation will be spectacular. It always is. It always reflects the times. I think what we're dealing with most is the method of delivery. I echo what Barbara said, that, the pivot to virtual experiences and delivery was very unexpected and very fast, but it had some really interesting benefits that we didn't expect. In a normal year, if anybody can remember what that looks like, we would work with upwards of 45,000 students every year, aged 5 to 85 plus, all ages and abilities. So in a strange way, offering those virtual programs helps us to reach even more that we might not have necessarily. So we're trying to look at the silver lining, but I do think it's going to be interesting. I think we're going to be in this situation for a while. It's not going to change immediately overnight. The one word that really comes to mind for me is partnerships. I think that's going to be crucial more than ever. And I use the analogy of puzzle pieces. I look at my friend Barbara and the conversations we have of, what puzzle pieces do you have and which pieces do I have, and how can we really work together to keep the arts alive and well and reaching as many people as we possibly can. So I think this conversation is a really great starting point.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sharon. Beth, let's hear from you. Oh, Beth, let's unmute you.
In case the dog barks. My name is Beth Warmath. I'm a professional visual artist. I've been in Clearwater for over 20 years, so thank you for having me. This means a lot to see the art growing in this community. It's great. But as a visual artist, I do a lot of different things. I have my bachelor's degree in graphic design, but I'm also an educator. So I go into the schools and teach. I teach summer camp across Pinellas County. I'm an illustrator, painter, and my passion is large scale murals. So the past 5 years, that's been my focus, is the murals. So I guess all around creator. But as far as the second part of the question, what we see for the future, I hope a lot of large scale murals, lots of art. Yeah. I hope it's more of a collaboration, that we do come together and can help mentoring students to show them how to create also. I guess art, I would just like to see more art would be great. So thank you all. All of you guys have been a big part of my life. So I truly appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, Beth. And last but not least, Mark Aeling.
Hello, thank you for including me in the panel discussion here. I'm the owner and operator of MGA Sculpture Studio, and also the board chair for the Warehouse Arts District Association. So I have the fortunate perspective to see the creative community from a few vantage points, and have been actively engaged in positioning the district to cope with the pandemic. And there's been a lot of strategy employed there through the board and the district and the city of St. Petersburg in general. And then, as a business owner and operator with MGA, it's similar but different, the consideration set and where we're headed and what we're doing and how we're trying to cope with everything that's going on. We've been very fortunate as a business to be very busy. I'm very grateful for that. If anything, we overcommitted to work, not knowing what the pandemic was going to bring us. Yeah. So we're trying to cope with that right now, and a shortage of labor, which is peculiar to me. And constantly rising prices for materials and those sorts of things. So from a district standpoint, we have a campus, the Arts Exchange, that we've been actively engaged in redeveloping. And the mission for the association, to give it one line, is to create sustainability or maintain sustainability for the creative community. And the Arts Exchange is an effort to do that, and we've built out some studios there, and we're about to open our education center, which is a huge step forward for us, which will be a big community component for us. But we had an event space that we were expanding right as we embarked upon COVID, and expected a certain amount of revenue from that. And that, as I'm sure many of the arts organization representatives here will attest, has been one of the biggest challenges. And my heart goes out to all of the performing art folks out there, because I think that they've suffered the most. I think it's been the biggest hit to our cultural enterprises is the performing arts. And we're just beginning to see a glimmer at the end of the tunnel here for that to come back online. But I have to say, as the creative community always does, there's an incredible resilience and unique problem solving and creative approaches, of course, to diversity. And we've seen some really cool public performances and utilization of social media, and an adaptation of creativity that is always inspiring. On our campus, we've focused on getting our plaza area up and running, so that as social engagement comes back online, we can accommodate large numbers outdoors. Of course, now we're heading into summer, so that gets a little bit more difficult, but I can tell you that we've been very, very busy. We haven't taken, as a board and association, we haven't taken this past year as a hiatus. We've been working really hard to move the district forward, because time marches on and the development of the city of St. Petersburg marches on, and we want to make sure that the creative community maintains a solid foothold in the city as we do that. So you know, the vibrancy of the city of St. Petersburg is largely driven by the creative community, and it was the first component to rebound out of the recession that started in 2008. And the city really, that's when the city really began to recognize the arts as a major player and a driver of economy for the city. And I have no doubt in my mind that it will be the creative entities in the community that carry us out of this current state of affairs. So, you know, it's a good timing for this conversation. I think it's really good for all of us to have an opportunity to share thoughts and ideas as we move forward and work together as a larger community, the county community in the Bay Area, and how we do this and how we work together to really make the arts sing in Tampa Bay.
Absolutely. Mark, that's a great kind of lead into the next part of the conversation, which is really about how each organization, or in your and Beth's case, artist, kind of pivoted during the pandemic. And I'd like to start with Mark and then Beth, specifically from an artist perspective, about how you felt at the very beginning. And then now, Mark, you talked about overcommitting. I think that a lot of public artists are saying some of the same things. I'd love to hear about that from you and Beth.
Well, so, you know, from a business standpoint, and, you know, I can't emphasize enough, at least from my perspective as an artist, the importance of approaching your practice as a business. And I know for some artists that just is like taboo, but you know, making a living making things is for me the goal, and being able to continue to make for the rest of my life is the goal. And the way to do that is to approach the making of things as a business. So we sat down as a team and looked at what was coming for the year and the opportunities that we had, and made a strategic play to try and scoop up as much opportunity as we could. And some of that, I think, was smart, and some of it has been challenging as we've moved forward through. You know, it's funny, there's a lull in the way that the economy is responding to all of this. And I don't want to get into the politics of all of that, but you know, the first year of the recession didn't see quite the immediate drop in activity that I thought it would. And I know from being involved in the district that there are many artists who have been hurting very badly. And it's because of that social engagement component where Art Walk and the art fairs and the open air art markets really drive. I was amazed. We had a grant opportunity that was provided to us from the Foundation for Healthy St. Pete. And we reviewed these applicants, and the number of artists that were making their living from these engagements, and, you know, Art Walk in particular, was amazing to me. It you know, there's a lot of people that are really hashing out a living through these cultural opportunities, and they have been really heavily hit. You know, from a business perspective, where my business sits in relation to primarily public art, we see the dollars are already there for the next year. They're going to run about 2 years ahead. So those budgets are in place. The money's already allocated. Those jobs are already, the gears are grinding. What I'm seeing in that industry is that the number of calls are decreasing. And this happened during the recession as well. The calls that are coming out tend to be more and more regionally oriented. Those calls become more They try to keep the money in the community, which I completely understand. I've got a number of projects that are in the state of Florida right now. There are still a few outside projects, still projects that are popping up here and there. But we've been aggressively pursuing the development side of things. From a strategy standpoint, I think that what's going to be the first thing to really rebound once I think we're a far way from the bottom of this rebound here. But I think the first thing that's going to really rebound is going to be private development. And then the municipal dollars are going to follow behind that by 1 to 2 years before tax revenues start popping back up. I mean, you look at the state of Florida, and so much of their money comes from tourist dollars, sales tax. You know, we don't have income tax here. So we get hit hard as a second home community, Pinellas County. You know, that's one of the things that we're all going to have to learn to work around. But the private development side is going to snap up all those opportunities, all those fumbled balls that are going to happen. Private development, it's not going to stop. I don't see St. Petersburg and Pinellas County, the growth diminishing. I just don't see that happening. So it may be a different development team than it was, but it's going to keep moving. So, you know, we're chasing those kinds of projects right now from a private business perspective. That was probably more information than you wanted.
Yeah, I really appreciate that thoughtful answer, Mark. Beth, how has your work changed during the pandemic? Have you been more in demand to create murals?
I've been really busy. Of course, at the beginning, when businesses were closing down, a lot of my projects, you know, just halted. So there was a beginning time that I was really nervous about everything. And luckily, Creative Pinellas had, you know, their grant. So I'm very appreciative of that. That helped out. And I think as people realized that we were going to be down for a while, then they started to notice, oh, well, I need, you know, there's things that I need to fix up, you know. So I work a lot with restaurants and businesses and corporation, you know, places like that to paint murals. So then it started to get a little bit busier because people were seeing that they needed, you know, things done. And I think, like Mark said, you know, it's a lot of local businesses wanting to help other locals. So I think just that collaboration of locals, you know, we kind of lifted each other up that way. But I have noticed the calls decreasing as far as like the call to artists. You know, I'm pretty dependent on that as far as, you know, because I'm an independent business too. So I'm always looking for the next job. You know, you're always what they say, have your poles in the water. So I'm always looking for, you know, what's going to be the next job. And I have noticed that has been a lull, you know, which is pretty, I depend on that, you know, as far as work. But as far as locally, it seems like I feel much busier. And I'm able to have more people come in that I can mentor, you know, so that's nice. And I have a crew of graphic designers that work with me, you know, local. So we're still able, you know, to do that. So I feel like it's instead of where I would travel a lot to paint, it'll be more locally, you know, as far as business goes.
Yeah.
So it's changed that way. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of changes.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Thank you, Beth. Sharon, I'm interested in how the hall has changed and what they're doing and how they're running their programming.
Sure. So, I mean, obviously the main stage part of Ruth Eckerd Hall was hit very hard. I appreciate what Mark shared. You know, that stopped almost immediately. But for what my team and I do, it's been a really interesting experience because we are arts educators and arts integration specialists. And in a strange way, what we do has been more in demand than ever. I think people look at what we do very differently now. You know, we always preach, if you will, you know, teaching a little differently, you know, taking a different route to reach students. And that's really what has been called for over the last year. So in a very strange way, it has almost elevated, I think, the importance and the recognition of what we do. You know, we operate on the premise that if the students can't come to us, we'll go to them. So I can tell you, come last August, we masked up and we're out in the schools more than ever. So it's certainly wouldn't have wished for this, but it's been a really interesting sort of revisitation of what we do. And I think people are looking at what we do a little differently with perhaps a little more value. So in that respect, you know, we've been grateful. We are a service organization. Ruth Eckerd Hall is nonprofit, which is usually a surprise to most people, but my team in particular is all about service. So, you know, when things started happening and those walls started going up, I think everyone would echo that, you know, the artists, we don't see a wall, we see how do we get under it and how do we get over it and how do we get around it. So I'm incredibly proud of my team. It was very different than what we've done, but that mission and commitment is there stronger than ever.
Thank you, Sharon. Roberta, let's hear from you.
Well, as an arts advocacy group, you know, this isn't our business, but we're, you know, our mission is to advocate for the arts. We've just, you know, gone virtual. So, you know, we had both our art receptions for the elementary kids and the high school students virtually, and with the help of partners. And I have to say, we're big into partnerships just because we need people and we can be better with others. So the SPC is a partner in the high school art show, and the Pinellas County Visual Arts Department, you know, and as well as Creative Pinellas. That's where we had our elementary school exhibition. So, you know, we did limit our art walks. One of the big things that we're promoting right now is art walks in downtown Clearwater. And they took a little bit of a halt. We were holding with a few people, but we're really looking forward to gaining momentum and getting more people out on our art walks. So then the other thing that we did is one project that we did was a video. It's a project that's basically taken a year, and it's called Behind the Scenes of Thinking Outside the Box. And again, it was just trying to be the promoter, the cheerleader with something other than having a big group event. So the video project, hopefully we'll be able to debut that in the fall sometime and let everybody see what we've been doing kind of during the pandemic. So.
Awesome. I look forward to seeing that, Roberta. And Barbara, let's hear from you. Oh, Barbara, you're muted.
Sorry about that. It's so interesting to listen to everybody because I've only been an arts administrator for about 5 years. I come from the business world. And in the business world, you're always trying to solve the problems. You know, you're solution-oriented, transactional-oriented. How do you deal with the situation at hand? I've discovered that artists are the most creative problem solvers. And this community, by the way, is exceptional. I'm part of the statewide organization of local arts agencies. And when I hear what some of the other communities have gone through or dealt with, I look at what we did here in Pinellas County, both very purposely because a lot of partnerships got created and a lot of cross connections and collaborations got created very quickly, but also the kinds of activities that were going on before. Mark talked about what they were doing in the Warehouse Arts District, and Sharon mentioned that they started really rethinking education 5 years ago. So this community, because of its forward thinking, was really, I think, as prepared as a community could be to respond creatively to what has been an incredibly difficult situation. But the other aspect I was thinking about as I was listening to everybody is that it was a very, very volatile situation. At the very beginning, when everything closed down and it was so sudden, it was like, well, how do we get people through this emergency? we worked with the St. Pete Arts Alliance, Pinellas Community Foundation, and then the Foundation for Healthy St. Pete, and put together our Artist Relief Fund and raised $140,000. And we got money out in April. So things shut down in middle of March, and we were getting $500 checks out to artists and $1,000 checks to arts businesses and arts organizations within 4 weeks or so of when the shutdown happened. And that was the immediate problem. And we saw applications from people, I can't pay my rent, I can't pay my insurance, I can't pay my car payment. So it was immediate and urgent. And then, you know, the CARES Act stuff started rolling in, and that immediacy of how we help people get their groceries shifted to trying to answer the question, what do we do today so that the arts landscape, when we come out of this, is as healthy as it possibly can be? And so partly what, you know, one of the things we did is we started creating a lot of content that was showing what was going on so people could stay connected to the arts, even if they weren't able to go out. We pumped as much money into the arts community as we could. So instead of pulling back and saying, oh my gosh, we have to, you know, protect our revenue and protect our dollars, we hired more people to write for the Journal. We went out with our mural project and found ways to get more murals. We continued our grants. So anything we could do to support the arts community, we did it financially, we did it emotionally. We just were really focused on the choices we make now will really determine in many ways what we look like a year from now. And I think for the most part, we made some very good choices. And I also need to do a shout out to Pinellas County, our Pinellas County government. We were one of the few communities that used CARES, that where our leadership took CARES funds and gave them and funneled them. I won't say gave them because it was a process, but funneled them out to artists as well as arts organizations and arts businesses. And so the county itself was really advanced in their thinking about understanding what our risk was. And how they could maybe make decisions differently than they might have. And it was really interesting conversations with county leaders about how you determine if an artist is an arts business and, you know, what you do with all that. But there was such a visionary aspect that county administration had too. So, and then I'm just in awe also of what the arts organizations did and what arts leadership did and what the performing arts organizations did. They got online quickly. They created ways of seeing art, pop-up ways in parking lots. They went out to schools with masks on. So this is really a very special arts community. And so some of what we can say is that you can learn structurally and you can learn by what people did, but some of it is just this really amazing community of individuals that happens to be here right now and you know, happens to bring the creativity and the vision in lots of different environments that has somehow all come together to our well-being and our good.
Wonderful, Barbara. I'm interested, you know, a lot of these organizations have been impacted and have had to change how they operate. And some of the things that were and that are what we consider normal are things that have kind of fallen away for these organizations. What are some of the things that you had to pivot to or, you know, had to become part of your organization's operations that are now going to become part of your regular programming? So how are those pivots becoming your new normal, and what are the things that you're leaving behind and what are you keeping? Let's start with Sharon.
Sure, that's a great question. And I will tell you, it wasn't the first question that we had. You know, as it's been said, our first question was just what do we do immediately and how do we get through this? Just to give you an example, we were able to put together an initiative called Literature Online. And it was something that at first seemed so simple. I mean, lots of places were doing story reading online and making videos, but what my team and I wanted to do is do something that would have much more of a shelf life than just this year. So we tied it to curriculum, started really making these kind of highly produced story times. And again, it sounds so simple, but to take the extra step and add the depth of tying that to curriculum, we started hearing from teachers, this is great. We want to use these all the time. This, aside from the pandemic and the issues right now, these are wonderful tools to have. So it was kind of this new discovery of our skills and what we could do. Nothing, make no mistake, will ever take the place of live performing arts, but we have these kind of new things in our toolkits that are turning out to be really, really valuable that we're excited about. I can tell you, you haven't lived until you've heard Paul Anka, read "If You Give a Mouse a Cookie." And because of what we do, we were able to pull in a lot of our guest artists and, celebrities that come through the hall normally, and they got involved. And it just turned into this really positive initiative that will outlast all of these troubles we're going through. So I'm grateful for those kind of gems that we found unexpectedly. We can't wait to get back to having school time shows in our theater and, busing the kids in for those first walks through our theater door. But again, it's been a nice discovery of how we can do even more. And I think some of those things are going to stay. I do think it's going to be a while before we get back to as much in person as we were doing. So in the meantime, I know we were all very concerned, how is this going to translate over video and through Zoom? And we were very doubtful, but it's been pretty amazing to see, kind of what second best, how good that can be. So we're looking forward to maintaining that. We don't plan to necessarily lose those things we did in the moment. We just want to add them to what we're already doing.
Sharon, we have a question. Do you feel like there are things you're going to leave in the past and never bring back?
Again, that's a great question. And I think time will tell. The schools are under so much pressure. The children obviously have lost a lot of time, and academics and annual progress are going to be at the forefront for quite some time. And we never want to take away from that. So I do think the days of having kids come to us after school in the evenings, on the weekends, and even that disposable income that families had, to come partake in programs on site. It's going to be a while before we get back to that. I would like to think we are not going to abandon them completely, but I do think it's going to be a while before that gets back up to where it was. Mm-hmm. And again, we're just committed to bringing those services to the kids wherever they are. If they can't come to us, we will do our best to find a way to get to them.
Awesome. Thanks, Sharon. Roberta, I'm interested in hearing kind of what you all have done that you're going to keep in the future.
I don't think that there's going to be, we'll put it this way. I think what we've learned is that we can just move forward, and we can make a difference in any kind of environment because of technology. And I think we've embraced, more technology than we ever have. So I think board members can be engaged now if they're traveling. I mean, I think there's actually a better engagement level of having everybody around. And so, and same thing like with videos. I mean, we delved into some things that we hadn't delved into before. We're complete novices at making videos and documentaries. And so, I'm just saying it's, sometimes you learn. And so I think what we've learned is that we can reach out to more people. So, I mean, we're just going to continue with those skills and hopefully continue to do our work.
Great. Thanks, Roberta. What about you, Mark?
Well, from a WADA perspective, we pursued and received a grant for an expansion of our website that will allow us to sell artwork online for our members, and that's something that we're in the process of implementing. And I think that that's something that we're going to absolutely carry forward. And I think it's going to be a significant benefit to our membership base to be able to have access to a much broader market through our social media and marketing platform, and access to, you know, individual websites are wonderful, but sometimes driving traffic can be difficult. So if you can combine those resources, I think you can get a little greater reach. So that's something that's come out of this from our perspective that we're going to definitely be carrying forward. And, you know, I mentioned the plaza space that we've been building and have now finalized. You know, during the course of the pandemic, we have not required artists attendance at the Arts Exchange, and we have, you know, went through a period of time where we had closed down, and then sort of figured out what the rules and what was safe, and artists started coming back in. And even then we held off on art walks, and then we implemented an open air art walk component on our plaza area where artists were able to set up tents, and that has been successful. And we're going to continue to do that because it opens up our reach and exposure. You know, art walk is a huge driver in St. Pete for the creative community. And it allows the campus to have a larger draw, and us to create a platform for more artists to benefit from that draw. So that's something that we're going to continue to do and grow. We had the good fortune to have a new tenant on the compound, 7C Music, and if you haven't been by and seen what these guys have done with the space, it's absolutely fabulous. And they've added a music component to the campus, and we're actually moving forward with the Rise monument right now. We just are pouring the footer for the wall that goes behind the monument, and on the back side of that, we're going to have a stage. So there'll be live performance opportunities on the campus, and these are all things that have been developed during the course of the pandemic that are going to continue to greatly benefit the creative community as we move forward here.
Thanks, Mark. Beth, let's hear from you.
So repeat the question one more time.
Any pivots that you're keeping in your business or your art making?
Okay, so well, as an educator, because I do teach art, I have a mural camp that I do at the Fine Arts Center. And one thing that I really loved when the pandemic did happen was we had much smaller classrooms. So we had more of that one-on-one time with artists. So because of that, I started mentoring other students to come into the studio to help to have that one-on-one, you know. So it kind of made me as an artist, because I have really high energy, it kind of slowed me down and made me appreciate that one-on-one time, you know. And so that definitely is something that I want to do from now on in my work, you know, whether I'm in the studio or if I'm on site at a job. I like that mentoring one-on-one, where before I was just always, you know, rush, get the job done, get a paycheck, rush, you know. So this has kind of made me appreciate the just the, you know, the one-on-one time. So that is definitely something that I would keep.
Thanks, Beth. And last but not least is Barbara.
So thank you. And I'm going to go a little bit of a different direction, because most of what everybody said, I would essentially agree with, and we've done the same things. But I think you cannot reflect back on this COVID year without dealing with the issue of racial justice that was raised at the same time with all the issues of the pandemic. And Creative Pinellas, I can only speak for Creative Pinellas in an absolute way, but I think in a general way, I can speak to the arts community. That was something that we had certainly spoken about internally, and, you know, racial equity, diversity. In fact, Mark was at a meeting with me and a number of other people. I think Beth was from the Clearwater Arts Alliance was there, and we were going to have a summit on equity, accessibility, diversity issues, and we were preparing for it. So it was a conversation, and that was like last summer, I mean, 2 summers ago, that was 2019. So it was a conversation we were already having, but not at the level of awareness and concern that we started to look at with what happened with George Floyd, and then the Black Lives Matter marches, and the activities around racial justice and equity. And it really, for Creative Pinellas, it made us really look much more carefully at what we were doing and what we ought to be doing. And I will just give you a very concrete example. For our grants, you know, professional artist grants, if you looked at our guidelines, it would saying, tell us about your practice and your genre. You know, we're looking at this and we're saying, well, if we really want to reach out to the community, if we want to reach out to the Black community, if we want to reach out to Hispanic community, these are words that say, don't enter this door. So instead we changed the words, tell us about the art you're making. You know, and that's just the tiniest detail, but I don't think we would have looked at that the way we ended up looking at it were, if not the kinds of social awareness, the social activities about what kind of society we are and how we're dealing with racism and other blockages for people to participate at the level that they might like to. So I think that's a pivot that we made and are still making. And I see that in other arts organizations in this community. And that's something that I am, you know, I think we're all committed to moving forward on. So it's not directly a pivot because of the pandemic, but I think it's a pivot that happened in alignment with what happened with the pandemic. And I think it's to the benefit of all of us.
Absolutely. That's a great point, Barbara. All of my clients are municipalities, and so I could have hours long conversations about procurement and how that is a barrier to so many, especially when it comes to public art specifically, and all the requirements that you have to meet in order to even apply for these projects. And so I think it is a very opportune time for cities and governments to begin considering how they're spending money and who's receiving that money. What I am seeing is that there was a lot of conversation about that during the Black Lives Matter at the beginning of the protest, and there hasn't been much change, much response to that. And so I'm hoping that a lot of our elected leadership continue to push that with procurement practices. It's a very, very, very important conversation to have. Well, I'd like to open it up to the broader group who's here, and I'd really like to hear from all of you. Are there things that you'd like to ask of the panelists, specifically about how you know, you want to be re-engaged, or anything that they're doing in their organizations? And if you'd like to use your raise your hand feature, I can call on you, or you can just unmute yourself and just be you know, aware of others who may be talking as well.
Well, Amanda, if I could start off with a question.
Sure.
To the full panel. I'm wondering how your audience has changed at all during the recovery of the pandemic, and how, or through the time of the pandemic, and how will your organization or you as an artist kind of engage with them into the future, having that new expanded audience level, and keeping in touch with them, and how your programming, if at all, will kind of encompass them in the future?
Do you want us to jump in?
Sure, yeah, go ahead. Anyone who has an answer.
Sure, I can just say from my perspective, Chris, we just started immediately reaching out to our families and students, whether it was mass emails or Zoom calls saying, you know, if you'd like to jump on. And even quite honestly, if we didn't have much news, we just tried to keep those channels open so that we have a connection there, so that people didn't think we had just kind of faded away. And it really turned into almost a social thing more than a business type arrangement where we just had families talking to each other and talking to us. They weren't necessarily calling to schedule lessons and the normal sort of things you would expect in a performing arts school. It became much more social, and we realized that that's what everyone was so hungry for, in place of what we could do in person. So, it was a lovely reminder that what we do is so much more than what it seems on the surface. Piano lessons to one child are a lot more than just learning how to play the piano. So in a way, I think it brought my constituents closer together. What we are hoping to do as we navigate through this, and again, I think it's going to be quite some time, and I don't believe we are ever going to look the way we did, which I think is actually fine. I'm not sure our goal should be to go back to normal. I think it should be to evolve through this, but we're just trying to be very careful to listen. It's so easy to think we know what everyone needs and kind of to impose what we think is the right thing to do on other people. And we're trying in everything we do just to listen and to ask what we can do. Just using our relationship with the school system as an example, our first question to them was just, what can we do for you? And that's really been our approach for the last year and a half. And I think it does bring everyone a little more close together. I don't want to minimize the loss and the hardship of the last year and a half, but I do think in a way we're talking to each other more and realizing there's just a lot more that goes on than sort of that surface level that you might think at first glance. So for that, I'm grateful, and we're hoping to really maintain that. We're hoping the minute the doors open that we don't all just go back to that passing in the hallway kind of relationships, and that we keep the heart that Barbara was talking about, that we remember that and remember the togetherness. Ironically, we were all so far apart, but in a strange way, we're kind of more together than we've been. So we're really hoping to hold on to that bond.
I could add to that, one of the most heartening things that I think has come out of this whole experience is, people have been spending a whole lot more time at home, and I think Home Depot is had a record year, and everybody's doing home improvement projects, and it's been very heartening in that people are decorating, and they're not just randomly decorating, they want to personalize. And I through my connections with the Warehouse Arts District, and my wife is a painter, she's done very well through all of this. And I know a number of the artists at the Arts Exchange, after that initial sort of challenge, people are selling work, and local folks are buying local artists. And I think that there is a resiliency in the community, and a desire to support, and people have this craving to want to support culture. I think that there has been a real soul searching that's happened through this experience, and people have started to question and assess their values, and that to me is incredibly valuable. And I hope that it continues forward, that this has been a little reality check for what it is to be human, and how important the cultural components are. I mean, it's the soul of the human experience, creativity. So that's something that I want to hold on to. And, I think we have a responsibility as representatives of creative communities and these endeavors to do what we can to latch on to that and to try and feed it.
I'd just like to say a few things, and honestly, thank you, Sharon, for your comments, because I didn't think I had anything to say, and then you actually spurred something on. And it's answering Christopher's question. Well, has your audience changed? And I think as the Clearwater Arts Alliance, I think one thing that we learned was the listening more, and it was really through our video project. So we wouldn't have done our video project had it not been the pandemic. And Beth was part of the Thinking Outside the Box project. And here we were, proud of how our boxes looked. But then when we got into the video project, we interviewed all the artists and went to their studios and saw their art. And it was honestly the stories of the artists, who they were, what turns them on. It was something that just came about that we weren't really expecting. And everybody had such a different story and different reasons for their art. And I think the whole listening, we wouldn't have listened as much, had it not been for this. And I think we're going to listen more. So I think that was a good thing.
Beth, do you have anything you want to share? Nope, you're on mute.
Hey there, am I on?
Yeah, you are.
I feel very appreciated as an artist, where I feel like during all of this that as an artist that we've come into light, that I feel like Mark said, locals are buying locals, in support of the art. And I have to say, it feels really good to be seen, where a lot of times we're, behind the scenes, where, we make this beautiful art and then we kind of like to be, not really in the showcase. But I just want to say how much I appreciate it. I appreciate the support of the city, that they support the local arts. I also appreciate Creative Pinellas and the work they've given to artists and grants. And also the Clearwater Alliance, the boxes that we did, the electrical boxes, and meeting with the neighborhoods, and just having that one-on-one with the neighborhoods and just learning more about your community is just a really great feeling than just being, a hermit in your studio, just working away. So it's been nice. It's been eye-opening. It's been humbling. It's been struggle. It's a big struggle. But I appreciate that people appreciate the artists. So thank you from all the artists.
Barbara, you have anything to add?
Everybody said everything so well. I'm just really enjoying listening to it. Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the audience? I know Mark has 4 more minutes, so if there are any questions about public art or sculpture in particular, I think, or as the warehouse district as well, but we can take those now if there's anything that you're interested in asking. All right. Any other general questions from the group? Well, I have one final question for the panel, and then we can, revisit some general questions from the group. But as we close and as the panelists close, I'm very interested in understanding kind of your thoughts on how arts and culture are integral to the future of the city of Clearwater, and what that means for the city. And Mark, you wanna share just before you leave? And
so I've had the good fortune to work with Christopher Hubbard and the city of Clearwater on a public art piece, and there's some great work in Clearwater, and you know, it's funny. There's this sort of competition that exists between Clearwater as the county seat and the city of St. Petersburg, and where Creative Pinellas sits in all of this, and it's kind of fun to watch it all play out. But you know, I don't want to throw you know, a hand grenade into the conversation, but I'm really curious how the arts are interfacing with the developments in the city, and where the program sits right now. So if you guys could talk a little bit about that, I'd really like to know.
Christopher, you want to take that?
Sure. Right now, the city's experiencing a large change with a lot of the development downtown, especially with the revitalization of Coachman Park, and the sort of the rebuilding and reimagining of what the Bluff properties downtown have in store for the future. And what we're seeing from developers is a desire to include more arts and culture in their proposed development as a means of attracting more people to interact with their space, and making those public spaces more appealing to be centers that people would actually kind of live, work, play, if you will. One of the things that we're also trying to do is, through the existing city development programs and within the planning department, is trying to incentivize investment in the arts and culture within development by giving access to developers to either density bonuses or other things that are appealing to that would allow them to get more out of their development, if you will, by investing in the arts and being part of the community culture. So, you know, we're trying to really bridge the gap between the city's growing investment in arts and culture, as well as the private sector, and create that partnership between the public and private sectors to kind of revision how we are offering programming, and the platforms and opportunities that can support that, in the hopes that it's a shared evolution into the future, and that you know, one side doesn't have to be the dominant force in determining how the arts and culture exist within the city.
There will be some really great recommendations coming out of this planning process as well, and those will be available for public review probably at the end of the summer. And I encourage you to come back and see what those are. We've really worked hard on what those draft recommendations are, and I think that a lot of these initiatives and leveling up of the program will be addressed in some of these.
Well, I can attest that Clearwater has a very robust and progressive public art program, and I'm envious of the private percent that you guys have established, and I keep pushing for it in St. Petersburg. I think it's very progressive, and really it's like one of those key components to the commitment of a municipality to the arts, to require private development, that percentage. So hats off to you all for the work that you're doing. And I thank you for being part of the panel. And I apologize for having to cut out early, but I appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Thanks so much, Mark.
Thank you for being with us, Mark.
Any of the other panelists want to talk about the importance of arts and culture to the future of Clearwater as we kind of think about closing up?
I guess I do. Because, Clearwater is, it's among other aspects of it, it's a strong tourist community. Clearwater Beach is always rated, either #1 or a top beach in the country. And development in Clearwater Beach for tourists has been huge. What I sort of start to think about is what differentiates Clearwater from other wonderful beach communities. And certainly the access to art that is already here in Pinellas County is a big part of that story of differentiation, what makes the unique experience that somebody who's visiting can have when they come to Clearwater. And the potential to further that with more arts experiences and public art, performing art, visual art. I believe it will continue to create the opportunity for Clearwater to be more and more appealing to the tourism industry. And so I think it's a really good strategy for economic development.
I'd just like to tag on to what, can you hear me? This is Roberta. I can just tag on to what Barbara said, in that I think Clearwater has got such great infrastructure right now, and Amanda has heard me say this before, but with the Capitol Theater, and then with what the programming, what Ruth Eckerd Hall is, programming with the jazz, well, not necessarily Ruth Eckerd Hall, but the Jazz Festival at Coachman Park. There's such a great sort of music component there already, and the fact that Ruth Eckerd, or that the Capitol Theater was there, has spurred on a lot of additional and caused a lot of success of merchants right downtown, restaurants. And so I agree that the more that we foster the arts, it's going to be better for everybody, because I think the downtown merchants are going to thrive even more if there's more arts and culture in the area. So I think we've got a great infrastructure, and certainly with the help of Christopher and the city with expanding our murals, and also we had out of the first cultural plan we had Sculpture 365. So there's really a lot right now to look at downtown, and so I think the experience can be rich on many levels. It's not just public art, it's not just music, it's not just theater, but it's this layers of experience. And so I think for us, we're trying to promote, and again, we're trying to partner with things. There's trying to partner with an event downtown with our art walk. That I think when people go downtown, they want to experience like multiple things. And so I think that if we continue with promoting art and continue helping our merchants, and I think we can have a good symbiotic relationship there.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. The word that comes to mind right now, hearing Roberta and Barbara, is responsibility. And thank you for mentioning the Capitol Theater. We're really proud of the programming down there. And I felt my responsibility from my perspective as at the hall was to include, like I said, school time shows. I mentioned those earlier. That's not just an evening concert venue. That can be alive during the day and be bringing lots of children and families there. So I feel such a sense of responsibility that we all really need to speak up. It's so easy to become siloed, when you're so busy and kind of swimming as fast as you possibly can. But it's so important to take a minute and, again, the puzzle piece analogy, see what we can bring to the table, see how we can help each other. We mentioned before the call, I think officially started, that Barbara at Creative Pinellas has an amazing summer camp scholarship program. So, she's recruiting children and families that I might not have access to, but because of that partnership, we're bringing in a lot of students to have a really special summer at our place. So again, it's just helping each other, listening to each other, and just, seeing what we can all do together. I'm very grateful for the infrastructure we have as well, but I just see some really great possibilities ahead.
Beth, do you have anything to add at all, or?
Oh, well, I definitely think it's super important because I feel like it's bridging the gap between the small businesses and the community and the artists in the city. You know, I feel like art kind of fills those areas. And I can see where Clearwater, just in the past 20 years, how much it has grown and how beautiful the art, it's just blossoming. And, you know, hats off to Chris. It really is I'm proud to be in the city. So I say keep on with that art and music. So important.
Absolutely. We have 8 minutes left. Does anyone have a burning question they'd like to ask the panelists? Well, while we're doing our final call, I would like to ask that each of you who remained on the call until the end, take a look at the chat box. We do have a survey up for the Cultural Arts Strategic Plan for the City of Clearwater that really is going to help inform and solidify the recommendations that we're making to the city. And that really will impact the next 5 to 10 years of arts and culture in Clearwater. And it's very important that we have as many community voices participating and giving us their feedback as possible. So we would love if you would it takes 3 to 5 minutes, I believe, to take the survey. So if you have that time, we would love for you to take it. We would love for you to share with your friends and neighbors and members of your household. And we really appreciate you all spending time with us this evening. I do know what a commitment it is to give an hour and a half of your time on a Thursday evening, and that does not go unnoticed. I think it's evidence of people who really do care about arts and culture and who are really excited about what the future holds, and who you know, have something within them that makes them want to come and participate in a conversation like this. So we really do appreciate you and all of the time that you took today. And I'll just give the panelists one more opportunity if they'd like to say goodbye or thank you or anything else. It's been really wonderful to have all of you on.
Just a matter of housekeeping. Amanda, when do you want that survey to be complete? Is there a time limit on that survey?
There's no time limit per se. As soon as possible would be great. We're working on, you know, providing the city some of this initial feedback. So maybe in the next week, that would be ideal. We probably will be taking it down, I would say, in mid-June. So yes, the next week or two would be great.
Okay.
And it says, is there a time for a question to Christopher? Absolutely. Elizabeth, if you'd like to come on, you're welcome to ask Christopher a question, or I can take it in the chat. I don't think we can hear you, Elizabeth.
Well,
Oh, Suzanne?
This was great, really inspiring. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much,
I'm going to
Suzanne.
send the survey to the Women's Caucus for Art, Florida, that I'm deeply involved.
Yes, thank you so much, Suzanne. That would be wonderful.
And even though the survey does close eventually, we want the conversation to continue on. You know, we can't grow unless we're listening. And that's part of what we want to do within the city, is really be responsive to our audience and, you know, grow our programs to reflect the community and the participants that are using them, and make sure that our programming is responsive. So, you know, please do consider this an open dialogue throughout this entire strategic planning process and on into the future. You know, we definitely want to reflect Clearwater in all of its capacities, both residents and visitors, to make sure that the city is offering, you know, what folks are interested in.
Mm-hmm.
So can we get that link somehow? I mean, because if we want to share the link and we want to get more people to take the survey, I'm not sure if
Sure.
copy and paste it right now, but is there a way to get that link some other way?
What I'll do is I'll send an email out thanking everyone. Eventbrite will send an automated email out, but I'll send a second one to all of you and I'll say thank you and then also provide the link to the survey in there. And I'm also going to put my email in the chat as well as Christopher's email. If any of you have any specific questions or comments or want to reach out about anything at all, please feel free to do so. And Elizabeth's question did come through the chat, Christopher, and it is the private developer component going back into the arts ordinance.
That's definitely something that we want to see a return to. You know, in the planning process, we've had a lot of conversations about that. And, you know, as far as from the city's perspective, we really miss that component being an active part of the public art commissioning process. You know, there is a lot of support behind bringing that back into what it was and growing that a little bit more into the future as well. So that really is something that we're directing some energy towards and trying to see some growth and some vitality return to that part of the public art ordinance.
Just as an aside, I founded, a few years ago, I founded the Women's Caucus for Art, Florida, St. Petersburg branch. And last year, in the last 2 years, we worked on a centennial project, a portrait project of 36 St. Petersburg women, all the same size, 12 by 10, St. Petersburg women, working women who also give back to their community. And it's being shown like this, but eventually it'll be shown as a single piece, which we want to donate to St. Petersburg. So if anybody has any ideas, we definitely welcome that. But in addition, fortunately, most of the artists had actually done their portraits before the pandemic. And we have shown in 4 places in the last year and a half. And we have 4 coming up until 1922. So, I mean, that's a celebration of what's available in Florida, because it isn't only St. Petersburg where we've been showing. And that's, I think, part of the inspiration that we managed to get in a very short period of time. You know, artists, local art, women artists, good women artists, to participate. And it's, you know, I mean, it's a giving. There's no money involved. I mean, you know, we raised a little money, but basically it was a gift by all these artists to celebrate for the centennial of women's suffrage. Just to let you know, and if you have any ideas of where we can have our permanent installation, I'm be very interested to hear.
Awesome. Thank you,
Thank you,
Suzanne.
Suzanne. And if you are looking for, you know, additional exhibitions, you know, after your scheduled ones that you have already, we'd be happy to host you here in the city. We have a couple different venues that we can display artwork at.
Oh, wonderful, Christopher. I'll put my email in the chat. How's that?
That's great. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much.
Well, you all have been really wonderful. What a great conversation to end a week that is leading into a long weekend. So hope you all find rest and sunshine and family time or not, whatever you guys are up to. But I hope that it's a wonderful weekend for you all and that the arts, as always, stay on your heart. I know I'm always looking at kind of what's been going on. So thank you all so much for your time this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
And Beth, become a member of the Women's Caucus for Art Florida. Look us up.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Everybody.
Good night.